What's good, everyone? This is Bases. This is the first of many Adobe Premiere tutorials and other tutorials that I'm going to be creating. The first video we're going to be doing today is talking about aspect ratios. One of the most common questions or tasks that I see as an artist is creating our videos for our music, illustrations, videos, whatever it is, for the various formats that are out there. So we have Instagram, we have TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all of those things, right? And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to work with a video that is in the standard 1920 by 1080 format. And this would be the standard format you would see on YouTube or Vimeo or like a widescreen television, depending on if you have 4K, all these types of things. But it's basically a horizontal video, not vertical video. Instagram, TikTok are what are considered vertical video. They have their own aspect ratios. So we're going to take a video that was exported in 1920 by 1080, which is like a standard format, and we're going to bring it into Adobe Premiere and see what we can do in terms of creating different exports and different outputs and what some of the different options are. And there are different schools of thought in terms of how you want to present your work. A lot of it will come down to you as an artist. So the goal here is to provide the tools within Adobe Premiere so you're not relying on like upload sites and things of that nature. Adobe Premiere is extremely dynamic. It works really well with all of the other Adobe applications. So the first thing we're going to do is import the video. So I'm going to go up here to File and Import, and I'm going to bring in this video. This is a video we did with San Francisco Art Institute highlighting an artist. Feel free to check it out if you would like. And so you can see I've done File Import, and it's automatically brought me into this project panel. And within Premiere Pro, there's all of these different panels and formats. And one thing to keep in mind is this blue highlight around each square. And you want to make sure that you are clicked on each one when you're, looking to complete a task. So the first thing to do, what I like to do, is go up here to Window and go to Workspace. And I have mine set to Editing. And Editing is a really great format if you're just getting started in Premiere Pro. There's effects, all these other formats, but this will provide essentially all of the foundational components you'll need to edit a video. So if you're not in the workspace of editing, that's okay. You could probably still follow along, but I think this is a great first step. So we're in the editing workspace and we have these different panels. For now, we're going to focus on the project panel. And there's different ways to create a sequence. So we want to create what's called a sequence. What is a sequence? A sequence is a timeline. It's where you're going to put all your video, your audio, your animations, and that's all going to live right here. So this is essentially where you're editing. This is where a lot of your files and motion graphics and effects will be. And up here is where you'll kind of review footage and have additional controls over the effects. And there's different ways to create a sequence. You can go up here, File, New Sequence, and you can see there's a bunch of different formats you can work with. I'm going to cancel for now. What I like to do is take the footage we're working with and drag it over and drop it onto the timeline. And this way we're going to be working in the format that the video is. So we know for sure it's in this 1920 by 1080. If I double click this here, it'll bring up the source monitor, and over here we have the program monitor. So what are these? The source monitor is each piece of footage you're looking at within the project. So you can imagine if you had a lot of B-roll or a whole bunch of different videos, you would have them here and you can kind of click through them and see what you're working with, and you can edit them and bring them down into this timeline. This one here, which is the program, this is what you're actually seeing as an export. So when you go to export the video and you've done all of your edits, you're going to be seeing. So all of the work you're going to be doing will primarily be in the program for this piece. If you're going through a lot of footage, you'll be working between the source and the program, working left to right. So we can see right away that we have this 1920 by 1080 format. This is the YouTube Vimeo format that I was referencing earlier. And let's say we want to bring this and repurpose it for Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Again, there's different schools of thought. For me, I typically like to create a square video. The reason I like to create a square video is because it's finding the right balance between the vertical and the horizontal. If I film something in vertical video, I'll just go with that. But if I'm taking a piece of content or video that's in this widescreen format, I like to do a square video because there's still going to be some extra space within each application, but it works really nicely and it seems to get really good engagement. So what we want to do is change this and put it into a canvas that's in a square format or a vertical format to use on social. So again, we want to make sure we're clicked within here, within the sequence, and we have this blue highlight. Now what we can do is we can go up here to Sequence, Settings. Now that we're in here on the sequence settings, one thing you want to make sure of is that this box is not checked. It is checked by default, I believe. And this links the two frame sizes. So if you change the horizontal, the vertical will change appropriately. We want to uncheck this so we are not bounded by that. So again, for me, I like the square video. First, what we're going to do is make a vertical video just to show that concept, because that might be a really common format for a lot of folks. So here, one of the easiest ways is just literally flip these. So we want to go 1080 and the horizontal will be 1920. And then we can say, okay. And it's going to say, hey, your previews and your renders that are going to change. That's okay. Don't worry about that right now. Just push okay. You can see right away we get this vertical format. And this works well. You can do this. Just know, you have a third of your video on each side that is not represented. So you're just going to see the center of the frame. If you're filming something and you want it to be applicable to different formats, this is where you could follow sort of like a Wes Anderson aesthetic and keep everything in the center of the frame. That way you're not really losing much. This, we don't really have that option. Since it's very dynamic video, there's B-roll, there's times where there's two people talking in the frame. We don't want to just completely remove someone. So now we have this vertical format, and if I were to export and upload it, it's just going to have this empty space. And when you upload to Instagram or TikTok, it typically will just stretch the video. And so you'll see a lot of times, even if you have something that's filmed in a horizontal view, you bring it into the program, you go to upload it, it fills the frame, but it looks kind of like stretched and pixelated. And that's not necessarily ideal. And you could also do that yourself if you wanted to. So you click on this video, the actual project here, and go to Effect Controls. Within here, you have a bunch of different options. You can change the scale, you can change the position, you can change the opacity. And as you get more familiar with Premiere Pro, you're going to spend a lot of time in here, just slightly revising, tweaking things, and getting them to work. So let's say I just wanted to do what Instagram or TikTok does, and you could just change this to like 150% scale. Still not quite there. Go 155, almost. Scale it up, and depending on your file format, it's about 179 to 180, and you can see, it's not really going to work. There's going to be a bunch of stuff missing. If it's a single image, that's okay. You can reposition with the positioning here. But for this type of video, it's not really going to work, and that's why I chose this 1920 by 1080, so that it's a good representation of the most dynamic video you might be working with. So let's change this back to 100%. And there's different options here. You can just bring this down to 52 usually. And you can see now we can see the whole video. And the canvas behind it still has this empty space, but it's not necessarily what we want. So what I like to do is take this video, drag it up, just click and drag and hold it up, and you're going to create a new layer here. And this works very much like Photoshop, Illustrator, any layer-based application. And now we have this bottom layer here, And the way that it's going to be viewed as an audience is from top down. So anything that's on top will show first. Anything below that that can show through will. So right now we're going to add a canvas here below so that we're not just seeing this empty space. So we're going to go up here to File, New, Color, Matte. Again, there's a lot of different ways. You could bring in an image. You could bring in a custom graphic. This is a really great way to build a canvas and get started and create something that's, visually pleasing for the audience. So we go to Color Matte, and it's going to make the right aspect ratio based on the timeline. We just say OK, and you can choose any color you want. I like green, so we're going to find the green, do a nice soft green here, push OK, and we'll call this green background. And now, boom, right away, we've created a new asset, right? So we have, this is the original video, this is the sequence, and this is this new canvas asset that we've created. And while we're here, let's go ahead and rename the sequence, and we'll call it, aspect ratio V1. So we know this is the actual sequence. So let's take this green background, drag it over here onto the timeline. And you can see right away by default, it's only 5 seconds, and you can change that within the settings as well, but by default it's 5 seconds. Super easy, just go here till you see the little arrow pointing to the right, drag it to the right, extend it out, and now you have this green canvas all throughout your entire video, which is great. And this is a great format. A lot of times I'll use this. I'll add some text up here. I might add some additional shapes and layers, and I can just, bring the text tool and start typing like Ed Drew, and I can adjust that, and we can go into that on another video. For this, let's take that out, and we're just going to be working in the format. So this is a great way to export into a vertical video. You can change the background. Let's say you want to go back in and change it. Just double click it again, say, oh, I wanted a blue one. Just go and change that to blue. Boom, and you have a blue background. And think about color tones, think about the emotion. Obviously, color portrays emotion. Green is my brand format. If you're working with a brand or a client, it's going to be based on their aesthetic and what they like. Now, let's go through a few more options here, and I also want to show how to do the square format of the video, which is the way I would typically export this. One other feature I want to show while we're here in this vertical format, you can click here on this video. Make sure you're on the actual video. We don't want to affect the canvas. We want to affect the video. So we click here on this, go over here to this, these two arrows, click it, and we have what are called effects. So let's go here to effects. I've already searched crop, but let's take that out of the search window, and you can see you have all of these different presets and things you can work with, and feel free to go through those. For this, we know the effect is called crop. That's what we want to do. We want to crop the video. So we just type in crop, bring it over, drag it on here, and let's say we wanted it to be a little bit bigger in the frame, something like that, but we want to crop it or reposition it. And again, it'll really come down to your video, what you're trying to show, what images are being shown. For the purposes of this, let's change this to 5% on the left. It's not quite enough. Let's do 10. Let's change it over to 17%, and then we can do the same thing on the right, 17%, and then we can go in and zoom in even a little bit more. And now you can see we're getting a bit more video vertically. We've cropped the video to create a custom look and feel, and this might be the format you want to work with. For the purposes of this, I'm going to go through and show the way that I would typically create this. Again, I like to have the square video because it works really nicely. A lot of times I'll even upload the square video to YouTube, and it's kind of seamless. There's still like the extra space above and below, but it's what I like to do. You could export this and you have yourself a vertical video, and we'll go through the export process in just a moment as well. So for now, let's take off the crop. Let's put it back to 100%. and this is what it would look like. So the way that I would export this, I would go up here to sequence settings, and 1000 by 1000 is the format for the square video on Instagram. So as long as you are not scaling below 1000 by 1000, you're not going to really have a loss of quality. You can even do 1100 by 1100 if you want to be, extra safe, but you can do 1000 by 1000. You can also do 2000 by 2000 if you have a really, nice 4K file you're working with. So for the purposes of this, let's do 1000 by 1000. It'll give us that same file format. Warning, just say okay. And now you can see we don't have our canvas, but we have a different format, and already without even affecting it, we're getting more of the video, and this is kind of why I like it. So now that we have this, let's go back, make sure you're clicked on the actual video file, and let's go to the scale. Typically it's gonna be around 50 to 55%. For this, it's gonna be 52, I believe. I like to leave just a little bit there. I think I might even do 51 for this, because it frames it, right? It creates a canvas that's pleasing, aesthetically pleasing. And we all kind of know there's different formats. We might be on our mobile, we might be on our computer, whatever device you're working on. And so a lot of my videos, they'll look just like this. They'll be a square format. And you can see I'm not missing any of the image. I can see everything the way it was presented originally. When I go to upload this, there will still be the extra space here. But let's say someone's holding their phone and they turn it, it's going to be the exact same. If it's on a vertical format, they're holding their phone in the vertical format, they'll have a little bit extra space on the top and the bottom. If they flip their phone, they go to the horizontal mode, they're going to have that same extra space there, but it's really just going to flip the image. You're not going to see any warping or weird transition that is distracting. And ultimately, especially with video, it's all about not distracting the viewer. You want the viewer to be absorbed. If it's a sound, if it's anything that takes them out of the story, reduces the experience. So the whole goal is to get them to watch the video and not even realize that they were watching the video the whole time. And you can think about that with music or anything as well, right? Like anything that's distracting from the viewer, unless that's the intended purpose, right? Unless you're trying to create some type of discord, which is a whole other discussion. But for this, I want it to be clean. I want them to watch it and not be distracted. And again, you can go in here and you can add text. A lot of times I'll add text or other shapes, things of that nature. But for this is how I would normally export this. One more note, you can see that I've extended the canvas, the green canvas, past the video, so that when I go to export it, we don't have any dropped frames. And a lot of what I like to do in terms of the details with my videos is make sure they loop perfectly, especially if it's something animated. This video does have like the standard fade to black, because that's like the standard format. And for YouTube or something like that, you might see this. But for social, if you get someone to watch your entire video and it doesn't like have that little 2 seconds or 1 second, or really it's a couple frames, they might watch the video again. And that's the idea, create a seamless experience. And so to review, we have our video here at 51%. We haven't lost anything. We have the green background, which is taking up and creating the canvas. And now we're ready to export. And this is the way I would normally export a video, especially something like this in a horizontal view. And I'll just upload it to all the different platforms. When you're going to export the video, you want to make sure to set your in and out point. And that's basically telling Premiere, I want this section exported, and this is what my video will look like at the end. So by default, your in point will be set to the very beginning of the video. Let's say I wanted to create like a 15-second clip. I could say, oh, I want it to start right there, right on that edit. Just arrow over, and I could push I, which is in, and you can see I get this gray. And if I were to go to export this, it's going to export all this extra space, which we don't want. And then let's go to the end of the video. And you can use your up and down key as long as these targets are selected. You also don't need to do that. You can just go to the end of the video. You'll see these little arrows at the end of the video, indicating you're right at the end of the timeline. And you can push O for out. So remember, I is in, O is out, and you'll use the same thing when you're over here in the source monitor for selecting clips. It's in, out, in, out. So let's go back here, make sure we're on the blue square, push out, and now when I go to export, it's going to export this section. We could also do the entire video, right? But let's say I want to create like a 30-second edit that ends at the very end of the video. This is 226, so we could just go back to 156. And push in. And this is where you could think about your audio, and I'll kind of go into some of the details for creating a seamless, because you don't want it to be super jarring when it first comes in. But let's just push in and out, and now we have a 30-second edit. It's going to play this, and you could also again just drag this over and do the full edit if you want. So now that we have this selected, again, make sure you're in the blue square here on the timeline, and go up here to File and go to Export Media. So File, Export Media. And you can change the location. Right here I have it called aspect ratio, and you want to make sure your preset and format, which is the codec, it's like the wrapper that it's going to go around, is set correctly. So let's go to the preset, make sure, I like to do match source. You can do all kinds of different things, but you can see if I keep it at 1080, we're going to just recreate what we just worked on alleviating. So we want to go to match source, and we could do medium bitrate. And you have the different codecs here. You have H.264. There's a newer one, H.265, if you're working in the newer Premiere. And these are basically a wrapper that's going to take all of your video and your audio, and it's going to compress it into a single file that's really manageable. So H.264 is kind of the standard. Another note, you can go in here to video, especially if you haven't set the bit rate to medium. You want to go in here and push more and check your bit rate. For social videos, I like a bit rate of 4 to 7. For something that's like YouTube or Vimeo, I'll go up to 10 or 12. It's a little bit higher quality. For this, we can go with 4. You can see it's only going to be 11 megabytes. It's going to upload quickly. It's going to stream quickly. There's not going to be any lag when someone goes to watch it. And then we would just push export. Push export, and the video will export. And then you obviously want to go in and QA it, check out the video, and see what it looks like. And then you can just go into where you dropped it and check it out, open it up, and you can see we have this nice square video that's going to work really well on social channels. So thank you all for tuning in. Please let me know what you thought of the video, any other notes you may have, other features, specific tasks that can be done within Premiere. I have a lot of different ideas, a lot of different tutorials I'm going to be making. I'm not going to only limit the tutorials to Premiere, but a lot of them will be in Premiere because it's really dynamic, and I think it really helps bridge the gap for a lot of artists, especially in Web3. So thank you all for checking out the video. This is Bases, and I'll see you all in the next one.